Welcome to Part B. The Amiga 1000 was released, and each machine had a signature of J Miner and a paw print of his dog Mitch on the case. It was a glorious machine, but didn't sell that well, only selling about 35,000 machines. You see, the problem was with the confusing marketing campaign, with the specs and high price point being far more suited to the business world, and yet it had the school kid marketing campaign that Commodore was so used to giving with the Commodore 64. All this gave a confusing idea of where the machine was being aimed at, with the machine falling in between the business world and the home gaming market. It didn't have the killer office apps to compete with the PC business market, and where it was marketed, the machine was really too expensive at this point for your average school kid. By 1986, Commodore was struggling, as the once mighty cash cow of the Commodore 64 had dried up, with most gamers moving on to consoles, such as the NES. Without this main income, Commodore had to do some serious cutbacks. 70% of the workforce was reduced in various offices around America, including the Amiga office, only leaving 5 people, including J Miner. Also at this time they had to move offices from Los Gatos to West Chester, Pennsylvania, resulting in most of the Amiga staff not wanting to relocate. Therefore the members of the original team drifted away, and J Miner was put out to pasture. The Amiga project was taken on by Commodore staff now, with George Robbins taking up a new cut-down Amiga project codenamed Rock Lobster. This was to be a cut-down of the Amiga 1000 to be aimed to being more of a Big Brother follow-on to the Commodore 64. This time Commodore were in familiar territory, and the Amiga 500 would go on to be a huge success. By 1989, Commodore were in full swing releasing for the Amiga, and they decided at this time to start doing game bundles to go with the machine, official game bundles that is, which brought even more buyers to the Amiga. The first pack was released in September 1989 for £399. It was called the Batman Pack, and it had some real hit Ocean games on it. There was Batman, the jaw-dropping game of the hit film. The game was a real classic, gameplay platform sections for you to contend with, but it was really the stunning driving and flying levels that really showed off the machine, as it allowed you to actually pilot the Batmobile and Batwing vehicles themselves. And there was almost arcade perfect port of New Zealand's story with our cute Tiki the Kiwi friend we covered in the last episode. Finally was Electronic Arts FA-18 Interceptor, as brilliant a flight simulator that you could possibly hope for, being really accessible and enjoyable to play. The following year, in September 1990, Commodore released a new pack called the Screen Gems Pack. This had the visually stunning Back to the Future 2 game by Imagine. In retrospect, it's an okay game, with a bit of fun and capturing the look and feel of the film, but overall, gameplay-wise, it's a bit of a dud that wouldn't hold your attention for that long. Then there was the Days of Thunder game by Mindscape. This was based on that cheese-fueled Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman film, where they tried to retell Top Gun but on the Daytona racetrack. This was easily the worst game of the pack, and it wouldn't hold your attention for more than 5 minutes. Then there was Nightbreed, the interactive adventure. This was another terrible game really, being a series of dull mini-games spliced together to the story of Clive Barker's film about a monster finding his way back to the city of Medan. Despite being a terrible game, it was actually quite compelling in some ways, and even though I hadn't a clue where or what I was doing, I often found myself playing the game just to soak up the immersive atmosphere. Finally, there was Shadow of the Beast, which was a Psygnosis and Reflections follow-up to the classic Beast game. The game looked amazing and just made your jaw drop from the great cutscene opening and guitar intro music. Unfortunately, once you'd got over the presentation of the game, the underbelly gameplay would become apparent, making you realise that the ill-designed, tough and rather simplistic game that it was, and soon it would turn you away. In retrospect, the Screen Gem pack was a poor selection, but with games that look good on display monitors in shop windows, this would be another smash release. Much better was a Cartoon Classic pack released in July 1992 for £359. This was the Amiga variant of the A500, which was known as the A500 Plus. The system gave you the ECS Enhanced chipset and 1 MB as standard, as well as giving you a much prettier Workbench 2 interface. Unfortunately, the change in hardware meant that some of the old Amiga games wouldn't work for the new machine. Gameplay-wise, however, the bundle was one of the best. This bundle had the really enjoyable port of the Simpson game Bart vs. the Space Mutants by Ocean. I actually prefer this to the NES version, being a lot easier to play. Then there was Captain Planet by Mindscape. This was based on the cheesy cartoon show around this time about being eco-friendly and saving the world. The game was a real duffer with poor animation and frustrating gameplay. But the real classic of the pack was Lemmings by Psygnosis and DMA Design. DMA, who are better known today for their Grand Theft Auto games. This was a brilliant puzzler, however, that had you aid your hapless lemmings to escape to the exit by assigning lemming skills such as climbing walls or digging to the lemming characters. The game came about when artist Mike Daly was trying to see how small you could design a game sprite to still have character. To show this, he produced an endless animated cycle of these creatures walking and being squished in various traps. Another member of the team, Russell Kay, felt that there was a game in this, and so they set about to work designing the game that would become Lemmings. This game was a real classic, from its perfect bouncy chippy tunes of the old favourites to compelling game mechanics, as you guide your cute critters to the exit to live to fight another level. There's also the Nukem button that would explode your green-haired furry friends, as if you were stuck on a level or just felt particularly sadistic. Only a few months later, Commodore would release yet another game bundle and a new version of the Amiga. The new Amiga was called the Amiga 600, and it was a much smaller design. This really was, as the current CEO, David Pleasance, rightly says, a total balls up by Commodore, with the machine originally supposed to be an introduction, cheaper model to the Amiga 500 Plus. Instead, however, it turned out to be more pricey, and with poor compatibility with the older Amiga games, and the loss of the numeric number pad, meaning that most games such as flight sims wouldn't work, it understandably annoyed a lot of Amiga buyers. However, the game bundle for the machine would be another great lineup. First of all, you had Jeff Crammond's stunningly good Formula 1 Grand Prix by Microprose. This offered realistic Formula 1 racing like never before, with a dizzying array of tweakability and realistic touches. The game was playable as well, capturing that fine balance between realism and accessibility that Jeff Crammond seems to hit perfectly with every game he releases. If that weren't enough to make you weep with joy, they also released on the pack Silly Putty, a game by System 3, which had you control a blue blob around the brightly coloured levels, morphing into different shapes. The game was great, with stacks of Mad Cat parody-fueled baddies sending up many classic films. The generous voice samples and sounds in the games were also thrown throughout the game liberally, offering a madcap, humorous adventure for you to enjoy. Finally on the pack was the brilliant puzzle game called Pushover by Ocean. This had you play an ant who must set up the dominoes on a level within the time limit, so that when you push one of the dominoes they will all fall over. This will then open the exit, allowing you to get on to the next level. The game was really imaginative and quite good fun, and certainly a great puzzler. It was also licensed as a big advert to Quavers, and so had Colin Curley, that dog from the Quavers had. All the above packs would also come with a brilliant electronic art package called Deluxe Paint, each having either version 2 or version 3. This was the best paint package of all time in my opinion, being so easy to use and really powerful. In many ways it was this tool, Deluxe Paint, that was the secret weaponry of the Amiga, as by making graphics so easy to create meant that many found their way into doing computer graphics and so creating some brilliant video game artists for the machine. Well, that wraps it up for part B. Please go on to part C, where we discuss the later machines such as the A1200.